We got football on Saturday somewhere. It's actually in Ireland. And we've got Buckeye Talk today. You can always count on that right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. Of course, 11 a.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday. That's typically the time. But please subscribe and hit that bell for the notifications because sometimes we got to move the time. But here we are with Tony Gerdeman and Steve Hellwagon. You can catch Tony at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And of course, it's Buckeye Weekly's the podcast. And this is the time of year to make that a habit. Steve Hellwagon, senior Big Ten writer at Bucknuts 247 Sports. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Really feeling that senior part today, but otherwise.
I never knew if I always go back and forth whether that's Big Ten senior writer or senior Big Ten writer. I don't want to get that wrong. It doesn't matter. It's a highfalutin title for me to mess up.
Oh, it could be. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you guys got to talk to a couple position groups this week, and I think Tony made the comment and, again, laid down more information for us that is very rare, that every Ohio State starting tight end since, I believe, 1996 has earned a paycheck at some point in the NFL. That is quite the statement for a position group that is probably actually at the bottom of the perception status and maybe the reality of production, elite players, elite talent, NFL production coming out of this program over the last 25 or 30 years. And then we've got this tight end group that, of course, Tony has much to prove.
Yeah, and Mark, it's not just the starting tight ends. It's basically every tight end that Ohio State has signed since like 1996 that hasn't retired due to injury, transferred, or moved positions, has at least gotten a practice squad check or a camp check, something like that. So it's a long line. And honestly, if you are playing at Ohio State or being recruited by Ohio State and you stay there for 4 or 5 years, you'll end up with a look in the NFL. But it's an interesting group that I think has gotten deeper over the course of camp, and it's one that has question marks. G. Scott has a handful of starts in his career. Will Kazmarek has, I think, 10 or 11 starts in his career. I think those are the top two. But I was really impressed with Jelani Thurman yesterday, talking with him. That was the first time we've talked to him maybe since the spring, and I don't know that I was around him in the spring when at his table or whatever. But he's a guy that is very, very confident and will tell you that. But in the next breath will also say, but I control how much I play. And it's about consistency. And if I'm not consistent, I know I'm not going to play. So there's been this focus on making him becoming more consistent. And talking with G. Scott about this process for Jelani, G. Scott, they've roomed together the past 2 fall camps. And last year as a true freshman for Jelani, G. Scott said he was on him constantly. And he's not on him nearly as much anymore. And Jelani Thurman was asked, was it annoying last year? And he's like, well, I don't want to say it was annoying, but you could tell it was pretty annoying, but it came from a very good place, and it has resulted well for everybody involved. So, those 3 guys I think will comprise the top 3, but then you also have Patrick Gerd, who is going to be somewhere involved as an H-back type, fullback type. So I think they've gotten deeper than they were at the end of spring.
Yeah, I was also in on the Thurman interview, and I just wrote it and posted it on our site with the video. If you're an Ohio State fan, you really need to go watch that video. That's probably on all the sites. But, it was about 13 minutes. He got loose and was really entertaining, I thought. He's made a point every time they've had an interview day, he comes and sits in the crowd and listens to what a lot of the other guys are saying. And when it was done, Stephen Means from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com said, "You're very comfortable doing this." And about 4 of us said, yeah, because he sat in on everybody else's interviews to know what you're supposed to say. But he said all the right things about how tight end is a developmental position at Ohio State, and you never stop learning and developing because there are so many traits involved with it in terms of route running, catching, blocking, everything else that goes into that position. that you can always learn a new trait, it feels like, at that position and make yourself even more indispensable to the group. So, when I look at it, he was very impressive yesterday. We got to talk, some to G. Scott. He continues to be an impressive person. He kind of got back into some of his background and how he's become somewhat of a spiritual leader, I guess, for players on this team, and really a positive impact and a good force in a lot of people's lives. And I think that's a good story as well. Keenan Bailey talking about the tight end group as the coach, Matt Guerreri talking about the safeties group as their coach, Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, Malik Hartford, probably the first safety off the bench, was also there. So, a lot of good insights yesterday. And we're kind of sifting through these one interview at a time to get them all out there on our site, no doubt.
I did like talking with Jelani Thurman. I asked him what's it like playing a developmental position, but having to do that development against Ohio State's defense. What happens when you have a bad day? And he said, there are no bad days, only lessons. And I think that's a very mature answer for a sophomore who Ryan Day, just go back and look at the different times that Ryan Day has talked about Jelani Thurman in camp. The first time was just like, he needs to be more consistent. He's got so much potential. It's just, it's not happening in terms of the consistency that we need it. And then you hear him talk last week and it's like, it's not a 180. It's just, you can hear the positivity in Day's voice. Like you're seeing more and more, and we need him this year. And I love being around him. I love his energy. And you just kind of see the growth of the answers that people are giving about him. He must be doing pretty well in camp.
And based on our conversation at some point this offseason, I forget who stated it, but the belief that G. Scott is neither the best pass catching tight end nor the best run blocking tight end, but he is the starter. So he is obviously the best combination of the two at this point.
That's what it seems like to me. I think we're going to get into these games and we're going to find out a lot about these players and what they can and can't do. And I think the ones that have shown consistency and can do a lot of these things that they ask are the ones that are going to get to play the most. So, that's kind of how I envision it, that, this is the starting point, and we'll see how it all grows and develops going forward.
And you guys also talked to the safeties. Caleb Downs, of course, a lot of Buckeye fans are so anxious to see him play. Didn't necessarily watch Alabama play last year to see how great he was, except for maybe a Rose Bowl that most Buckeye fans watched. Is he more, and I should be able to state this myself after watching Alabama as much as I do, but I can't say that I was really focused on Caleb Downs. Is he more Steve Atwater, like bring the wood, like bone crusher guy back there? Or I can't think of the Bengals safety at the same time that was just
Fulcher.
Yes, David Fulcher. Thank you. Number 33. Number 33.
He was a stud.
Yes.
Is he at Arizona State? Is that where he came from?
David Fulcher. That sounds right. Steve Atwater, Arkansas. But anyway, I digress. Or more of the, I think I've got my answer, maybe somewhere in the middle, Troy Polamalu, who seemed to be the bone crusher and the ball hawk at the same time type, but just in regards to his style, because he's coming in with a huge reputation.
I'll go with two Ohio State guys just for familiarity. The combination of Jordan Fuller and Dante Whitner. In terms of Jordan Fuller was the ultimate security guy, never missed a tackle, was back there, could be that last line of defense. Dante Whitner was a guy blowing up screens, getting into the backfield, really good tackler. And as Matt Guerreri said yesterday, Dante Whitner, Caleb Downs can do all of that. He can be your center fielder. He can cover in man. He's great in zone. He can come up and be an extra linebacker against the run. He can blitz. So I think it's hard to just, he's one guy. I think he's several guys. And I think I'll go with Jordan Fuller and Dante Whitner as a combo there, just to give Buckeye fans some guys that they know. And the thing is, Caleb Downs isn't necessarily he's not Malik Hooker necessarily. He's this flashy guy. I think he had 2 interceptions last year. But he's around the ball. He's safe. He's secure. And if they want him to make plays, he will. He had 40 more tackles than anybody else on the Alabama defense this year. I'm not expecting that to happen this year. I think his numbers are going to go down, and people might be like, hey, what's wrong with Caleb Downs? And it's just like he doesn't need to have 107 tackles this year, and the next guy has 67. I think the defense will be a little bit more complete. And I am interested to see how busy he is, and if he is leading the Buckeyes in tackles. Is that a good thing or is that a concern?
Yeah, you brought up a great one there with Malik Hooker. He may be one of the best, if not the best, that I can recall. Of course, people also talk about Mike Doss years ago, kind of revolutionizing and changing that position within the Ohio State defense with everything he was able to do. Interceptions have got to be a big part of this defense, and I want to see more of that, but also to have safeties and even the corner. I did a story yesterday on Davison Igbinosun, the cornerback who, kind of languishes in the anonymity because Denzel Burke's on the other side, and he gets all the, the credit and all American honors. And Igbinosun, all he did was number 3 on the team in tackles last year because he wasn't afraid to come up as a run support player when the pass call was off. He was filling the lane and getting up there and cracking guys in the alley and making sure that those 7-yard gains only ended up as 2 and 3 yard gains. So that's a big part of your defense when your secondary can support. And I think the secondary is going to be perhaps one of the best this team's ever had. Potentially, I want to see it come together, obviously, but when you have preseason All-Americans like Downs and Burke, those are the guys that you build around. Then you think you've got, talent and experience at the other 3 spots. Igbinosun, a 2-year starter, one at Ole Miss and one at Ohio State. Hancock started the last half of last season. Ransom started basically the equivalent of 2 seasons. So, put her on the field. Let's see what happens. And, as I said, Malik Hartford, I sat down with him at the foundation fundraiser about a month ago, and he's got more personality than 10 people. I mean, he's a guy that you really want to get to know and have be part of your team. That's what I found talking to him. So you got a lot of these type guys, and these are people that you can win with. Is my feeling. So I'm pretty excited about it. You referenced Palomalu, and I want to share the opposite of a bad beat story. The Steelers were playing somebody, and I had the over, and it was not looking good. And I'm in the basement of my buddy's house, and his wife and his sister-in-law are 2 of the biggest Steelers fans in the world. And so they cheer on every play for the Steelers. Well, Troy Polamalu picks off this pass at about the -40, and he's headed the other way with about 3 minutes to go in this game. And I'm the loudest voice in the room yelling, go, 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 trying to will those points to get that over. And my man brought it home. So there you go. That was the opposite of a bad beat. That was a good win, or what a backdoor. That was a backdoor, what that was.
Backdoor cover. There we go.
Cover. Was it a cover? Yes, it was.
Well,
then it was a good cover.
Yes.
There's no such thing as a bad cover.
I'm going to have to start to figure out such things this Saturday with Florida State and Georgia Tech. And
what's the line? What's the line on that?
11.5, I believe.
And people are talking like they think Georgia Tech could be, maybe not a contender for playoff, but top half of the ACC this year, and could give. We don't know. Florida State's got Uiagalelei. Somebody pronounce it.
Uiagalelei.
Yeah, he's there on his fifth stop as the quarterback, and how is that going to look? Was there anybody who skipped the bowl game for Florida State who's back on the team this year? I mean, that's kind of an interesting dynamic, or did everybody leave?
I think everybody's gone.
Yeah.
Everybody's pretty much gone.
Yes.
because the guys that played in that bowl game, there wasn't much there. So
I've got Florida State and Georgia Tech on behind me. I couldn't put them in Ireland, but I did put them in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, which is as close as we can get to Ireland. And
I was wondering why you had a blue turf field back there.
It's a 14-0 Florida State in the first quarter. So hopefully this gets better.
Okay. The new game doesn't major on geography, apparently. That's as close as we could get to Ireland.
They didn't want to send somebody over there to do the mapping of the stadium. It's just a bunch of lazy politics.
Yeah. 31-17. That's going to be my score on that. Florida State.
Okay. So Florida State covers.
Maybe gets a field goal in the last 2 minutes to put it wide.
And folks, we will have a prediction tier. It's now available here at the Voice of College Football over on the main channel. So between myself and our guy Steve Merrill from Wager Talk with his incredible 21-5 against the spread and so forth, we will try to do you right. All right. So I didn't think we had much to talk about, but as you guys continue to ramble, I continue to jot down stuff I wanted to ask you and more topics. And some may spill into next week, and they're fine being brought up next week.
Can we get an Akron expert for next week? Can we get an Akron expert?
I could take.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just
joking.
I could be that guy.
I'm just joking.
I used to live right down the street from beautiful. Is it? Not SoFi. That's in Los Angeles.
It was the rubber
Infocision Stadium.
Infocision. Yes. Yeah.
That's it. You can stand out on Exchange Street and look in the whole stadium. And so that's why nobody goes to the games, because they can all, there's just an enormous crowd outside the stadium watching for free, I guess.
That's why.
Where do we go? David Sanders. I know that was not expected, but I did see a 55-45 lean Tennessee's way before it became official. That gave some people some hope that maybe the Buckeyes would swoop in at the end, but that did not happen.
Yeah, I think this one was done about a month ago, solidified, and that's just the way things were looking at in the middle of July or so. Once Ohio State was done with the visits, and then Tennessee stayed in it. And, it's interesting that this has created quite a bit of a stir, whether it's NIL stuff or it's Justin Fry stuff. It's not a good situation right now for Ohio State in terms of out-of-state recruiting of the offensive line. And I know Buckeye fans are unhappy that there aren't more in-state offers going out, especially with the scholarships going to 105 likely next year. There's kind of no reason to slow play some people at this point. But this is a guy that they desperately wanted. They didn't get. They went all out with NIL stuff. What I will say is Ohio State does not have much of a history of 5-star offensive linemen over the last since the internet era. Ryan Day has signed 2 and has a commitment from another in Carter Lowe, and I think 3 would be as many as both Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer had in their time. But when you look at those 5-star guys, they're generally productive. But Paris Johnson, you got 1 year out of him as a starting left tackle, and he was the number 1 offensive tackle in the class. You got 2 years of starting out of him, but only 1 year at left tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere, you got 2 years of starting out of him, and he was the number 1 5-star offensive tackle. So they're going to get more years out of like Josh Fryer as a starting tackle than they did out of Paris Johnson. Like, you just got to find the right guys and develop them and get the most out of them. And so David Sanders, you see him listed all over the place, from like 270 pounds to, I think he's around 275 or something. Very similar to Nicholas Petit-Frere, in my opinion, where that first year you're going to have to, I know people are saying he's a day 1 starter. Not at 275 pounds, you're not. Not at 285 pounds, you're not. Like, not in the SEC. So you play him what you can. You're not going to redshirt him, but you're going to try to play him. So that first year is developmental. Then maybe you get 2 years of starting out of him after that. Like, that's kind of the max of what you're going to be getting out of some of these guys, where, if you can develop them, you can get them just as long, if not longer. but you need the bodies. And right now, Ohio State, if something happens to one of their tackles, they're in a bad way. And that has nothing to do with Sanders. That's a different topic altogether.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot here. Looks like most of the top offensive linemen have already kind of made decisions or are not considering Ohio State. So they only have 2 commitments in this class, Carter Lowe and Jake Cook, I think, is the other one from Westerville North, I believe. And I want to say he's a project. I think they beat, what was it, Louisville. Was he committed to Louisville? Was that the deal? And then switched to Ohio State, I believe. So, I've seen him at camp, and I think he's got potential to be a guy, in a year or two, probably in 2 years that could help him. I think that this is the position above all others that they're going to have to go heavy into the portal this offseason. And I think they're going to have to go into the portal probably across the board when you really get right down to the nitty gritty of this. I mean, if Devin Brown doesn't stay, I think you've got to go get a veteran quarterback just on the off chance that Sayin, Noland, St. Clair aren't ready, So, that's one right there. Running back, I think you probably, you're going to be all freshmen and sophomores, theoretically. So probably need to go get one there. Wide receiver, you lose at Buca, you might be okay there, but you're going to have to go heavy in the portal this year, and I think you're going to have to go get 2 starters on the offensive line at the least out of the portal this year. So if you want to, again, this is who do you want to be? Do you want to maintain this minimum of 11 wins at Ohio State? I mean, they haven't dipped below 11 in a long time, and unless they go heavy in the portal, they probably will next year.
Well, and the other thing with the portal, everybody's looking for offensive linemen in the portal. Even if you've got 5 starters, you'll take a 6th guy and move that your fifth guy down. So it's everybody is looking for that, and so that makes it even more difficult. Yeah, we just need to go get a left tackle. Yeah, everybody else is going to be going to get a left tackle too. That's going to drive the price up to a point where you're like, well, now we're out of it because it's not worth it to do that for that position or this one guy when you do have a finite amount of NIL funds to spread around. So they will look in the portal, but it's just dangerous to rely on it because that's what everybody else is doing. And eventually the store shelves are pretty bare and you're left with, week old bread from Louisiana Monroe.
Oh dear.
Folks, we appreciate the contributions. Go ahead, Tony.
No, I was gonna say just to throw a school out there. No offense.
Who was that guy? What was his name?
Victor Cutler.
Yeah, you do so much better with the names and stuff than I do. I think in 1995 I would have ripped all these names off, but I am just a disaster right now in terms of the names. So
I hate to make negative confessions, but I'm right there with you, Steve. Just like David Fulcher, right there.
Fulcher.
And doing what I do, that's not a good place to be. Where I'm trying to think of names all over the country all the time, and people are like, "You don't know who that is?" Yes, I know who they are. I just can't come up with their name right now. Exactly. All right.
I can see the jersey number.
Before we get to the weekly Will Howard conversation with some different perspective, folks. So stick around for this one. I've got a few things to throw out there. We've got some contributions coming in, so we appreciate everyone. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Excuse me. We appreciate your loyalty, sir. Ryan Dawes with the Super Chat contribution. Who amongst the non-starters will make the biggest impact on offense and defense? I know starting is a relative term.
In the non-starters, well, I think on offense, whoever the other running back is, Judkins and Henderson are both.
No, you can't go with that.
Yeah,
you got to pick somebody else, Steve. That doesn't
easy.
count.
Well, okay. Are they going to start with 2 running backs on the field? Because by
they're
definition,
as Ryan alludes to, they're both starters. It's a relative term. You can't go that one. You've got to pick somebody else other
I
than those
know.
two.
I'm being a dick about it. So I think
I wouldn't go that extreme, but
No, I would agree with them. I would agree
Brandon
with them.
Ennis, Will Kazmarek, Jelani Thurman. I think those are three. If we figure G. Scott's going to start at tight end, Brandon Ennis at wide receiver, probably the fourth wide receiver, and maybe Bryson Rogers or even Mylan Graham could help out. But I want to get into the season and see how the roles are kind of carved out. And our friend Dan Hope will tell us each week the snap counts from 11 Warriors. He is the snap count guru in terms of telling us that. But those three guys, I think James Peoples will be an unsung hero on this team too. I was joking with my buddy that the kid from West Muskingum, Rashid Cisse, the walk-on running back, I was joking that he'll be the guy that is out there, as the clock's ticking down inside 2 minutes and it's 55-4, he'll be the one that's out there. Tim Brando is thanking the producer and plays are being run in the background. And, Ryan Day's about to run out to midfield and, Jenny Taft's about to run out there and get him. And, all this, all the frivolity of signing off. Rashid Cisse will be out there to take the last couple plays. On defense, my goodness, the list is long and distinguished because I think the second team could probably finish in the top 5 in the Big Ten, with a representative offense. And that would be Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, maybe CJ Hicks, Arvell Reese. Let's see. Malik Hartford, mentioned him earlier at safety. The young corner everybody loves is the fourth corner is Jermaine Matthews. Yeah, that's the list, my list, and I'll stick to it. I'm missing a defensive tackle or two probably that'll fit in there too.
Well, and I'm currently wrote about the offense yesterday in terms of guys who have made the most of fall camp, and I'm writing the finishing up defense today. One of those, Steve, you just kind of alluded to, Caden McDonald, a defensive tackle, who is the number 3 defensive tackle most likely, and it continues to make some noise. But in terms of the biggest impact, I probably if Jermaine Matthews gets to play, he's going to make an impact. The problem is he's got 3 NFL guys in front of him, 2 outside corners and Jordan Hancock at nickel, but he's good enough to rotate in with them if they want to do that. And he's a guy coming off the bench that would have a pretty big impact. And I do think that, we still have yet to see those guys stay healthy for an entire season. So I think there will be opportunities for him to play. Kenyatta Jackson is a guy that keeps getting talked about, but that is kind of a yearly thing as well. And this is going to be the best he's been as a redshirt sophomore. So we keep hearing good things about him in practice and the difficulty in stopping him, but that's how practice goes when you're a starter quality defensive end playing against an offensive line that you might be facing the number 2s right now, or actually the number 3s because the number 1s are out sick. And it's not been a great camp for the offensive line because of illness. So it's not unusual that defensive linemen are looking really good right now. CJ Hicks would be a fantastic answer, but I still want to see it. And they know what he can do now. So now it's up to them to have the faith in those situations to actually call those plays and put them in for those situations. So I think those are some names on defense. And offense, my first thought was Brandon Ennis, like Steve said. You're talking about the number 4 receiver. He's going to play. This is not one of those things where, we're going to rotate as much as we can, but they don't get past 5 and 6, or they don't get to 5 and 6. I think you'll see Brandon Ennis out there more than, say, an Xavier Johnson was in the past. I think he's going to be out there pretty regularly and get those guys rotating. The way they keep talking about Mylan Graham, he is making a push, but you can't ever really expect too much from a freshman wide receiver at Ohio State because it is difficult. We've talked about it over the years. Carnell Tate had 18 catches last year as a true freshman. That's like the 4th or 5th most in Ohio State history. And for a true freshman wide receiver. So don't expect big things, Jackson Smith and Jigba had 49 yards receiving as a true freshman. Don't expect big things from true freshmen, but you could. I wouldn't be surprised if Mylan Graham has the kind of Chris Olave progression, where by the end of the season you're seeing something from him. But even Olave, I think, had 12 catches as a true freshman. So it's like everybody remembers that Michigan game, and he had 2 catches for 48 yards, 2 24-yard touchdowns. But there's not a lot of production around that. So I think that's a name. But James Peoples and Brandon Ennis, I think, are the two that I would go with, because I think James Peoples will have 100 carries and probably 600 yards rushing this year as a number 3 guy. And I expect him to play in quite a few third quarters. I'm interested to see if he plays in the first half of games. And that would give you another indication that they are very confident in him. So those are some of my answers. What about you, Mark?
Oh yeah, there's so many selections left on the board for me to try to scarf up at this point. I will go with the ultimate wild card and the ultimate ace from either a negative impact or a positive impact is that I would love somebody to run the numbers on how many quarterbacks get injured, first string quarterbacks get injured during a season, because the backup quarterback, whether that's carrying through the rest of the season, 2014, or it's just, hey, we need you for 3 weeks to get us to November 1st. That could be, obviously, for any team, could be huge. Havnar, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution. Really enjoy the show. Would like to know early score predictions for the Team Up North game. Just curious. Thanks, guys. Early score predictions.
Well,
this will be fun.
I'm already on record. I'm taking Ohio State in that game. I took Michigan last year, so this is not a homer pick. It's more of a home crowd, a home field pick. Although even at Michigan this year, I think Ohio State would still be favored. A score? I'm waiting for something to pop into my mind, and 30-16 did. It's an odd score, but odd things happen in that game. So I'd say 30-16.
Yeah, you were kind of reading my mind. I figure with the quality of the Michigan defense that they might be able to hold Ohio State to 27 points. I guess I want to see how good the Ohio State offense is. Can the Buckeyes establish the run against good defenses? And I think Michigan will put a good defense on the field. The jury is out, I think, on I presume Orji is going to be the starting quarterback. I think the jury is out on him and his receivers and his offensive line, although it ought to be pretty good. I want to see how good Michigan's offense is, because I know Ohio State's defense is going to be great. So does Michigan approach 21 points, or do they get held to 14 points? I'll say 31-14, something like that. But again, I would like to know, a little bit more. If we don't feel confident in Michigan's offense and they only get 10 points, and we feel real confident in Ohio State's offense, they could push 40 points. I mean, they've scored 56 in this thing, in recent vintage. So, although Michigan wasn't, quite as good then as they seem to be at this point in time. But what does Michigan have to play for as well? Are they eligible? We don't know that yet. We assume with each passing day that they haven't, handed this down for 2024 yet. But, can they rule them ineligible in September? I suppose they could. So, if they have nothing to play for, what does that mean? Do guys quit the team midstream to protect their NFL stock or whatever, so wouldn't surprise me a bit. So, I don't know. I guess we'll get into it and see, but I'm thinking 31-14 as of right now. Just assuming everything's kind of middle of the road, we'll see how it all turns out.
I'm going to go with this narrative, even though it's an imperfect one, because had it been 2 years later, it would be the 50th anniversary of my first Ohio State-Michigan game. Man, I'm old. But I'll go with this one. In 1976, I knew nothing about Ohio State football. It wasn't like 1977 where I kept track and I knew. And then by 1978, like I knew every player and statistic and all of that. But 1976, I have no idea, having not followed the season or anything, why 22-0 on the screen and Bo Schembechler being carried off the field and seeing that just enraged me. Like, I was furious. It was like somebody stole my Tonka trunk or, broke my Rock'em Sock'em robot or something. I was just at a feat, like I was enraged and practically punching the TV screen. So we're going to say Ohio State wins this game 22-0 at the shoe.
Whoa. Okay. A shutout.
Sure.
That would be cool. Ohio State didn't have a shutout last season. They had like several teams scored a field goal, and that was it. That's something I want to see is, do they hold somebody scoreless this year? That would be a great feat. I don't know that, again, I don't know anything about Akron, but I would say Akron's a pretty good candidate in the opener if they can't get within field goal range. So it could be a game if Ohio State plays like it's capable on defense where they hold Akron to under 100 yards. I mean, it could get ugly. So what's the line, like 50 on that? So, I mean, I guess what's the over-under? Probably 56. So they're probably thinking 53-3 or something, but I don't know.
Mark, that 22-0 has me wondering, is this, say it's 14-0 in the fourth quarter, Ohio State scores a touchdown late. Are you telling me they're going for two at the end of the game?
Sure.
That way Ryan Day can obviously be asked, hey, why did you go for two there? And he could yell something and have another moment. But boy, 22-0, a shutout. I'm old enough to have remembered some shutouts in this rivalry. I'm sure we all are. So if they can do that, then that would erase some things and help swerve some of the narratives going around there, I think.
1993 being the latest, correct?
28 zip. Yeah, that was a bad one.
Yeah, with a outright Big Ten championship on the line.
I was there. My buddy and I had 2 tickets, and we drove up with 2 of our friends, and they never leave the games early. So it's about middle of the fourth quarter, and my buddy's like, let's go to the car and beat the traffic. And like, well, those guys aren't going to be there, whatever. And we get to the car, and they're like, where the hell have you been? And like, well, I don't know. We figured you guys were going to leave early. He said, we left at the end of the third quarter, pre cell phones, so pretty crazy.
If I hear 22-0 out of anyone now badgering me for the next couple weeks, people relax. Okay. All right. Let's keep it going here. We got Wayne checking in. Wayne, thank you so much. We appreciate you for all the good work and information that you guys provide. Thanks. Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate you making that effort. Thank you for that. And Yakov ushers us into the Will Howard conversation. Thank you, Yakov. If Will Howard is a second-day pick, has Ohio State won a national championship?
No.
Second day is the second round. I mean,
but the
first round.
Yeah, he could be a first rounder and they still don't win it. I mean, I'll keep saying it. This is going to be the most difficult national championship to win in the history of college football. So Will Howard can play damn good in every single game. And you know what? They're going to be playing other really, really good teams that have other really, really good players. So did Justin Fields lost to Clemson in 2019? Was that his fault? I seem to recall Chris Olave breaking off a route or whatever, like things like that happen, and quarterback can play his ass off and it doesn't matter. So I think obviously a second day pick is good news, but I still think there's so many variables that draft position has almost got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. Second day pick is second round or third round, I believe. And, he's going to be drafted on his own merits. I think that he's got potential to be an NFL quarterback. I don't look at him as going in and starting anywhere the first day, but potentially, down the line as he gets in. And I mean, he's got the leadership gene, it feels like, and he's got the personality gene. And, we're going to find if he's got the playmaking gene. That's one more thing we're about to find out. So, I'm bullish on Will Howard, and we'll get into the season and see if those feelings are validated, I guess, by how he plays. But I've got a good feeling he's going to do well for this team.
I'm unveiling national predictions on Thursday night, so we are just about one day away. So I better decide if Will Howard is capable of winning a national championship, because that is my biggest question nationally. And my thought process is that this guy is the 20th best quarterback in college football. And do I believe that a 20th best quarterback in the nation can win a national championship playing like the 20th best quarterback in the nation? And I don't think in today's game that can happen. But can the 20th best quarterback at Ohio State win enough during the regular season to get to the playoffs? Absolutely. He can be the 20th best quarterback in the nation. And I'm not talking about statistically. The 20th best quarterback in the nation with those weapons can have top 5 statistics. But I'm saying the 20th best quarterback in the country can lead this team to a top 4 seed and put them in position. But then once he gets to the playoffs, he has to play better than that. He has to elevate his game, because let's say they've got to get through Utah, an Oregon rematch, and Georgia to win a national championship. Carson Beck can't be the best quarterback in the nation facing the 20th best quarterback on that night. So that's an impossible calculation to make. But what are the odds of that happening? I'm having trouble pulling the trigger on Will Howard and the Buckeyes, unfortunately.
He can be the 20th best quarterback on that night as long as the quarterback he's facing is the 21st best. I mean, it's all relative, and a play here, a play there. But he may be the 20th. Well, he's the 27th in the preseason. Doesn't mean he's going to be the 27th by the time November rolls around.
Yep.
I think Alex Orji is 50th or something on that PFF list. I would expect him to be much higher by the time the game actually rolls around, just from experience and the fact that there's very little data to support putting him anywhere right now. Yeah.
My take is more that I believe Ohio State's the best team in the country. Georgia's got the best roster, 1 through a zillion, but it doesn't matter who your 75th best player is. That Ohio State, I believe, has the top group of 25 players, let's say. But does Will Howard, as quarterback and most important position, weight that down? That's the call.
I'm with you, because I have people asking me the same thing. Like, Ohio State's, is it natty or bust or whatever? And it's like, they're not even the favorite to win the national championship. And they may have more talent at all the other positions, but you're going to be as great as your quarterback is good, basically. And we still have to find that out. I think it's a positive sign that he's already been named the starter, and he's got 2 really, really great offensive minds right there along with him, in Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. I don't think you can. 2 guys have always had great offenses, unless they've been held back by an above average to average quarterback. And I would say Kyle McCord is above average, certainly. And as we've said, if Will Howard can put up Kyle McCord numbers and add the running game to it, that's enough, right?
You would think so.
You got to make the plays, though, and that's where they messed up against Michigan last year. Is they didn't make the plays at the end.
This is Pro Football Focus saying that Will Howard is the 27th best quarterback in the nation. Phil Steele says he's the 13th best prospect for the NFL. That's a completely different deal. Is it related? Of course, it's related, but it's not the same ranking. And then I saw him all over the place between 8 and 25 on various rankings from other people. Now, I'm not going to criticize this, nor am I going to confirm it, because I just found it this morning and I've not looked at the previous 26 on the list, which we could do here briefly. But that seems a little low to me, a little low. And I don't think that this quarterback class actually has a top end 2 or 3 like previous classes. I don't think Bryce Young's here or CJ Stroud's here to the degree that I don't think Carson Beck is that guy.
Well, I mean, and you scroll through this list, and I think 5 through 30 are essentially the same guy, basically. Like, you can put them in, and you shake them up in any order almost. And, you know, you can have people that are okay with it or people that hate it. And, you know, I'm looking like Tyler Van Dyke at 15 based on his year last year. Like, I think a lot of this is based on what is like redshirt freshman year or whatever. DJ Uiagalelei has been the same guy pretty much throughout his entire career. I don't know that I don't Florida State is better than they were last year for having him. I assume they're going to be better than they were without Jordan Travis, but I don't expect them to make the playoffs this year with what they've got. Grayson McCall at 18, can he be what he was before Tim Beck ruined him? I don't know. Can he get that off of him that 1 year at Coastal? Cam Rising is the heart of a champion, but the knees of a 75-year-old. I was surprised that Riley Leonard is so low, because this tells me that this is a lot based on just data, or else the Riley Leonard Notre Dame hype would have him much higher. So it's hard to get upset at data because it's just facts basically, and how they look at them. But I think there's plenty of room to move, and there's nobody that I really, really like love, or like this guy is amazing, or this guy is clearly the guy. So I don't think, and I've talked with people, NFL people, that this is not a great year for the quarterback, but they're always going to be overdrafted just because that's the nature of the business. Now, the good thing is, like, almost everybody has quarterbacks now, and so they're cheaper to have in terms of drafting them, so you don't necessarily need to take one. But you can take one every year if you want, just because they're cheaper than they always used to be.
I would hope that this is a holistic approach, meaning I always start every analysis with the data, with the statistics. And then people sometimes accuse me of overvaluing the statistics. No, that's a baseline. That's where you start. If you say, who are the best hitters in baseball, you go with the statistics first and you grab the stats. Then you start to talk about all sorts of nuances around that. Now, this is more of a team game, obviously, but you do the same thing with quarterbacks. Who has the best stats? And then you start to talk about, okay, who's hindered by a bad offensive coordinator, or a system that's not conducive, or doesn't have the weapons, or does have those things, who's got an offensive line. How much of this is just stats driven versus how much of it is projection driven, that Drew Aller is going to be the 5-star that we've expected him to be? How much of this is projection? And when you look at those stats, and Drew Aller would be a perfect example last year, you just look at the stat line, he had a nice season. Sure, the completion percentage could be a little bit higher, but 25-2 touchdown to pick ratio, that's amazing. No, watch the games. It was obviously ugly for him against Ohio State and Michigan in particular, and even Indiana, before he bailed them out with a long touchdown pass that was probably his best play of the year in a clutch situation. But again, lack of downfield separation from wide receivers hampered him. So there's a lot that goes into the evaluation. So I would hope that there's a bit of a holistic approach to this. Yeah, Tyler Van Dyke, he was a mess last year. Now, he did get hurt. I'm a big KJ Jefferson guy. I think he's really good. I would have never said that, because his first 100 passes in college football, he completed like 45. But he's turned into a high 60%, like 69% guy since then, with 21-5 and 21-4 TD to pick ratios.
I'm still way off of the Jackson Dart bandwagon. I guess I've only seen him play not great in the Ole Miss games I've watched, but I know people swear by him. But again, I think that's also a testament to the rest of the class. Like, it's just not there this year.
Yeah, it's not an elite class, but the further I go down, and I'd have to compare it against other years, but it looks to me like a deep class of capable quarterbacks. Miller Moss could really ascend this year.
Mm-hmm. He should.
So,
I mean, in that offense with what they like to do, there's no reason he shouldn't. Like Nico as well at Tennessee with that offense, he could be in line for something big. And I know people are talking up Haynes King. We'll get to see him on Saturday to see how that goes. Same thing with Kyron Drones at Virginia Tech. I'm seeing people talk about, somebody's going to win the ACC and make the playoffs, and Drones might get them there. Yeah, it is a requirement. It has to happen. So that means it's possible for anybody to do it. I don't think it'll be Max Johnson in North Carolina. I've never liked anything he's done in the times I've watched him. Thomas Castellanos at Boston College is fun to watch, but he's a wild card, and I don't know how wild Bill O'Brien's going to let him be. I'm fascinated to see what Curtis Rourke can do. I liked him at Ohio, but he had dealt with injuries last year. If he's healthy, he can do some things, but can Indiana do anything around him? I don't think so. And then Avery Johnson at 37. He's the guy that chased Will Howard out of Kansas State, if you believe a lot of people. He's at 37. So he's got some developing to do.
I thought you were saying 37 years old.
No, that's Peyton Thorne. He's ranked 38. He's 37. And now we can get into some Naked Gun type.
Where's Tuttle? Tuttle's banged around the minors for a few years here. Has he got a starting job somewhere this year, Tuttle?
He's battling Alex Orji.
Yep.
Oh, he's at Michigan on his 5th stop. Okay.
I thought Steve was going to follow up on an Avery Johnson. I thought he was going to take off on the old Spurs star there. I thought that's where he was headed.
But it is interesting. Cade McNamara, number 58, Alex Orji, number 61. A couple of notes there for the Michigan fans. Sam Levitt, former Spartan, number 66. Why? Yep. I don't know.
Who won the job over Jeff Sims at Arizona State.
No offense, Mark, but I think you would have a pretty good shot of winning that job over Jeff Sims. No offense.
I would. I don't know. I could eat the football better than Jeff Sims and not throw it to the other team. I guess I could at least do that. They'd have to carry me off the field, but I could at least do that.
Just don't throw interceptions in the end zone.
I'm going to throw this one out there since we've got roughly 10 minutes, and I don't believe we've got any other comments or questions coming in. We do appreciate everyone's support today. All right. Our buddy Corey Brada. No. I got to finish off on the Will Howard. That's right. I was on Michigan podcast yesterday. Steve Dace. This was his question for me. I'm not going to say he's grasping at straws because I didn't accuse him of doing that to his face, so I wouldn't say it here. I do think he's trying to come up with a way, and he admitted this, to knock down this Ohio State would-be juggernaut, to say, if they're going to pound these two running backs and Will Howard's going to be running for 3rd and 5 first downs, don't they have all these prima donnas at wide receiver that are going to be like, where are my 50 catches? Are they going to have a disgruntled locker room, specifically in the wide receiver corner, because of the style of offense?
I don't feel like that's going to be the case. I don't sense that type of, even with the Buca, who you'd think is really counting on having like an 80 catch season to be a top of the first round pick, or, to get into the first round or whatever his stock would be. I don't sense that type of attitude from anybody connected to Ohio State. I just don't see it. I think that they understand the situation the offense is in with two great running backs, And I think that, they're going to have no problem building flashy numbers against 7 or 8 of these teams. I mean, now are their reps going to be cut down because the margin is lopsided? Possibly. But, that's a you problem. If you don't catch 50, 60 passes in this offense, then you didn't do enough, is kind of my feeling. So, it kind of works both ways. You've got to run a great route, get open, and make the catch. Well, Howard has to make the throw, and the offensive line has to protect for him. It all has to come together. So, there's a lot of pieces of parts that haven't played together that have to lock into place for it to hit maximum efficiency. And do I foresee somebody having 90 catches on this team? No, I really don't. Is 80 a possibility? Maybe. The leader could end up with 70. I mean, that's just where it could be. So, I'm not too worried about, divas at wide receiver worrying about their catches. It's like, hey, win some football games, and I think all the rest of it will take care of itself.
I don't even know who is a diva that has played receiver at Ohio State in the last 20 years. The only like outburst I can remember from a receiver not getting the ball, it was when Michael Thomas was redshirting and was angry at the lack of offense in the bowl game and tweeted something out about it. Like and he wasn't playing. And so like, this isn't I should have gotten the ball. It's like, you're redshirting, and he learned from that. But like, I assume this is about Marvin Harrison or something like that. Talking with the Mecca Ibuka, if you've ever talked to him, the one thing you're never going to say about him is he's a diva. You talk to Carnell Tate, any of these guys, like that's not anything even remotely true or something that anybody would use to describe them. Even Jeremiah Smith coming in with more hype than any Ohio State freshman since like Andy Katzenmoyer or Orlando Pace. Like he's a quiet dude. He's finally got to talk to him. He was asked, do you embrace these expectations that people have for you? He's like, no, because I could go out and have, against Akron and do nothing, and people are going to think I didn't live up to something. All I can do is my best in the game. And, as long as we win, that's all that matters. Marvin Harrison, I think, had 2 games last year, 3 catches for 22 yards or something like that. 2 catches for 20 yards. Like, that happens. And Marvin Harrison was the best receiver in college football last year. So like, and I don't remember him ever going on social media and throwing his quarterback under the bus. And there are plenty of videos out there where he is being interviewed and people are trying to get him to throw his quarterback under the bus, throwing the quarterback under the bus for him, and he will rebuff them. That's NFL GMs. That's podcast hosts. Like, there are no divas. I dismiss the theory because show me some proof of it first.
Yeah, I think it's a theory that's not targeted at this Ohio State team, at these particular players. It is, as a general theory, that wide receivers are divas, and if you run this high-octane offense, that this is what they're expecting. And it's not Cornelius Johnson or Roman Wilson who were less regarded, recruited, and knew what they were getting into going to Michigan versus wide receivers that sign at Ohio State and expect to be superstars. So I don't think it's directed at these particular players. It's just the concept that wide receivers go to Ohio State to be stars and chose there over anywhere they could possibly want to go.
I mean, God forbid. I can't believe you went there to be a star. What are you, an idiot? You went to Ohio State to play receiver and be a star? Are you crazy? Yeah, I mean, it's natural. And everybody has their own path, and that's what the transfer portal is for. Just ask Julian Fleming.
Good points. I knew I would get them. Steve also, by the way, I thought it was funny, and I'm not picking on Steve at all because I appreciate him having me on his show. He was running his awards by me, and he believes He is predicting Michigan to win 4 major player awards. And I said, football teams that lose 3 games typically don't win that many individual awards, number 1. And number 2, that's just, I don't know if we went from year to year throughout college football history that there would be a team that's won 4. There's only like 11, talking about all the positional awards. He's got Doak Walker going to Donovan Edwards, Mackey Award going to Colston Loveland.
Good chance.
The Remington or the Outland going to Kenneth Grant, the Thorpe going to Will Johnson.
Good chance. I think good.
My thought that I ordered them, and Will Johnson's got the best opportunity, I think, to win the Thorpe. So I'm going to go that route because there's a lot of reputation that, not that he's not a great player, but he doesn't have to pick off passes unless there are streams of footage showing him getting burned on 70-yard TD. He's got a reputation that he's the best. And so as long as he holds that up, even if he doesn't pick off passes, boom, he'll win that. I think I went with, there was a number of reasons I didn't favor Grant. I went with Loveland, although I picked off about 4 or 5 tight ends that are in more pass-heavy offenses that could produce numbers. The Ole Miss tight end, Prescorn, Mason Taylor at LSU. Another one that I came up with in a pass-heavy offense that should produce better numbers. So if people are going by numbers, it's not going to be Loveland. And I think Donovan Edwards is the last on the list.
Yeah.
I just don't see it happening.
I mean, what evidence is there to expect that from Donovan Edwards? I mean, the numbers last year were not very good. He's had good moments. I would agree with you. I think Will Johnson has a very, very good shot. He's probably the favorite, but they're not going to throw at him much, so he's going to have to make plays other ways. I think Colston Loveland, in a year with a quarterback that has experience, I'd be okay with that. But how much is, unless he's Alex Orji's security blanket, that could help. And he's probably going to be the first tight end drafted, but choosing anything offensively with this Michigan team to win any kind of offensive award, I think is, I don't know how wise it is right now. And choosing Kenneth Grant over Mason Graham, I think, is maybe not the best way to go, because so much of these awards are based on hype and what people know, and more people know Mason Graham than Kenneth Grant.
Our buddy Ferris Khan says, little breaking news from camp. Colston Loveland repping part-time with wide receivers now. I don't know if that's a knock against the Michigan wide receivers, that they've got to get Colston Loveland involved there.
No, I mean, they move guys around all the time anyway and try to find mismatches. So, I mean, they're going to play 12 personnel. They're going to play 13 personnel. So they're going to have all kinds of tight ends out there to max protect and also to help Donovan Edwards, because he's going to need it.
So we always appreciate Steve being here. Check out his work at Bucknuts 247 Sports, of course. And the Buckeyes are about 10 days away from being on the field against Akron. Tony, what's going on at Buckeye Huddle and Buckeye Weekly?
Buckeye Weekly. I think we're going to be doing a live show Friday, live bold predictions for the season sometime in the probably early afternoon. I'll get that settled, and you can check us out at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle for more information there. Once that gets put into the system. Like I said yesterday, I wrote about Brandon Innes and also some offensive guys making their marks, making the most of fall camp. Today I wrote about Caleb Downs and all the things Matt Guerrieri had to say about him yesterday. And also I'll be posting the 6 Buckeyes on defense that have made the most of their fall camp this year as well. So that'll be coming later this afternoon.
Tony, unlike our usual MO at the end of the show, I'll let you go right now. I've got a little promotional deal to do, so I don't want to waste your time. We'll let you go right now. Appreciate you being here as always, sir.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, man. All right. Here at the Voice of College Football, member benefits as a YouTube channel member. Listen up. If you love to put a dime or two or more on the games, college football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.